Hey everyone, Nick here. Tonight is a special night because I'm taking you along with my first night flight with the DJI Mavic 3 Pro. As a photographer, I've always been drawn to the magic of capturing cities illuminated under the stars. And with the Mavic 3 Pro low light capabilities, tonight's adventure promises to be unforgettable. Alright, so here at the start of the video, I am just showing you that I had an issue with locking the GPS. I had to reset the drone. I had to move around. One of the main reasons why I wasn't able to lock in was because I had two tall buildings right behind me. Also had to do a compass calibration. It's very common for some reason whenever it has a low GPS lock in. Usually you'll get all those errors pop up. And that's from my personal experience. Alright, so we got progress. Started getting moderately weak to strong signal. As you can tell, it's starting to find more satellites. And finally getting a strong signal. Getting a green light to go ahead and take off. And the whole process roughly took around 7 to 8 minutes. I went ahead, took off. Now, mind you, this is my first flight at night with the Mavic 3 Pro. My main purpose was just to get as many pictures, as many video samples as I could. So I went ahead, set up for the first image. That looked nice. Went ahead, shot at auto, and then I went ahead, switched to pro to a 1 second exposure, and that looks pretty nice. And this was edited. I wanted to mess around with the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO to see how far I can push this drone. This is one of the other images, and that was shot at f4. Now, when you're switching to a higher aperture mode, what you end up having is getting that star burst effect from the lights, because the blades of the aperture are in the way. It's letting less light, and it's also making a sharper image. Went ahead, set up for another image. And the images that you're getting are simply amazing, and I've shot with Air 2S, which does incredible job, but at f4 at ISO 800, the quality that you're getting with the Mavic 3 Pro is just simply amazing, and definitely does not compare to the Air 2S. Now I went ahead, from my personal experience with the Air 2S, I would have to shoot between 4 to 5 images to get one without motion blur, but from just looking at these images at the f4 and the f2.8, obviously everything was just on point, zero motion blur. So this drone is notorious for night mode in video. I went ahead, switched over, and what you're seeing is basically raw footage. I did not edit the videos, and that to me is incredibly amazing. Something that Air 2S could not do. And like I said, this is not edited. There's no neat video. This is in-body noise cancellation. It is shooting at a high ISO, but it does an amazing job at making the footage look extremely clean. Went ahead and stopped, switched over to normal. Unfortunately, the normal was just too dark and it looked unusable, so I went ahead and switched over to the camera. I got a shot at 1x. Simply amazing. This is the Hasselblad, the Macro Four Thirds sensor. Um, I played around at different apertures. Now, what I was trying to do is gonna go ahead and use the zoom lenses. Since they are using a different sensor, it does take a minute to switch over. This is at 7x. Simply amazing. For social media, it's great. 3x. Once again, this is great for social media use. I'm not going to go as far as it's usable for large prints as compared to the 1x, but it's definitely usable. And it definitely gives you a different perspective to where you don't have to fly so close to the objects. As I mentioned earlier, when you're switching over from different cameras or if you're switching to video, it does take a lot of processing, and sometimes you got to make sure that you are recording or that you are taking an image. This is the Brooklyn side. This is one of my favorite images. It's just simply amazing. The amount that you're able to pull out from the shadows, the amount of information that you can pull out from the highlights is just simply amazing. And once again, that's me coming from Air 2S that also does an incredible job. As far as minis, I had the original mini that the camera was just incredibly bad, that I had to go ahead and get the original Air 2, and then eventually I went ahead and upgraded to the Air 2S, and then I also owned the Mini 2, and they were definitely not something that you would use in the low light, and for the most part not usable for photography in my personal experience. And I believe here I went ahead, switched to the video, went into the night mode. You can tell that I hit the record button, but it did not activate. I would probably recommend hitting the record button on the RC. I feel like it will be more responsive. But at least you're getting basic ideas, since I am screen recording. Unfortunately, it's not in 4K. It's the 1080, I believe, that you're able to screen record on the RC. I believe here I realized that I wasn't recording. Or not yet. Roughly around here. And that's when I realized I hit the record button. Now what you're seeing here is a raw footage from the night mode. As I mentioned before, this is not edited footage. If I'm sure if I would have brought up the shadows, brought down the highlights, got a better white balance, it would definitely give you a much better shot. Getting a weak signal here. Went ahead, took a shot of that. Now, as I said before, all my images are edited in Photoshop. If you guys are interested in how I edit drone footage, go ahead, hit a like and subscribe and leave a comment. I was getting a weak signal as I was getting a lot of interference, obviously, in the city. So I went ahead, got a shot of that. It's a little bit overexposed. Has to do with the editing, and I went ahead and got another shot. And that's definitely a much better exposure. And once again, I went ahead, went into the album to make sure that I'm not getting motion blur since I am shooting at higher aperture. And the next step, I wanted to see and make sure how the zoom cameras work. So I have more samples. So that was the 1x. Same thing here. Actually, I spoke too soon. I will take images of that particular skyline view with the 3x and the 7x. And I believe I've run into the same issue where I hit the record button and once again it's not recording. And I would definitely recommend probably hitting the record on your RC controller. I went ahead and switched to the camera mode for photo. Lowered my ISO, increased my shutter time, and wanted to test out how aperture 5.0 will look. Now, for people that are unfamiliar with aperture, basically what it does, it allows the smaller the number, the more light is able to come in. Now, the larger the number, the less light comes in. And usually the smaller the number, the softer the image, the larger the number, the sharper the image. Now, when you're dealing with low light, you want to allow the most light possible in a night mode scenario. So for night, I would definitely recommend not going above f4 for the Mavic 3 Pro. Now, for people that are familiar with the word bokeh, when you get that blurry, smooth background, basically that's usually shot on the smallest aperture possible. And when you're looking at lenses for a camera, the smaller the aperture, the more expensive the cameras are. And now in the case of the drone, since it is a smaller sensor, you don't get the bokeh, and the main purpose of the smaller aperture is to allow more light in. So I'm just taking images. I'm taking as many images as I could, as once again, that was my first flight. I wanted to get as much footage as I could so I could test it around, see how much I can push it, and quite frankly, once I uploaded everything, I was simply amazed at what I was getting. Alright, so here's where I actually go ahead and use the zoom camera. Now with the zoom cameras, you cannot adjust the aperture. That is only for the 1x camera, the macro four thirds sensor. Go ahead, I got a shot of the Freedom Tower. That's one of the edits that I did, and then I got a little bit more carried away, different type of color profile. Some people might prefer that. Started recording. So I started recording a video. As I said, I just wanted to get as much footage possible. Also wanted to see how stable the drone would stay in the air, how smooth it would look, and in my opinion, it looks great. Almost looks like a camera on a tripod. Now granted, it is in the gimbal, but then again, it's also 400 feet in the air. Absolutely amazing. Zero movement. Hopefully I'm not giving you motion sickness. here. It's just a shot. I believe it's roughly around 1 minute long. I just let it record. Stop recording, hit fly home. Now when it's returning home, one of the new features that Mavic 3 has is it gives you almost a laser beam in the direction that it's flying. And when you're returning home, you have to make sure you're careful and that you set the height for return home high enough, higher than the nearest building. If you guys like this type of content, please hit a like, subscribe, and if you want to see how I edit my images, leave a comment. Thank you.